I want you to stop what you're doing for a second. Just pause. Check the date on your phone or your watch. It's February 2nd, 2026. Now, I want you to kind of mentally look around you, whether you're commuting, sitting in an office, walking down the street, look at the skyline, the paved roads, the coffee shop. It all looks incredibly structured, doesn't it? It looks official.
Mm-hmm. It's the grid we all live on.
Yeah, like a well-oiled machine.
Or at least the grid we think we live on.
Right. But I have a statistic here that is going to completely shatter that image. It's going to make that grid look a lot more like a facade.
Right.
As of today, right now, over 60% of the entire global workforce is operating in the informal economy.
It's a number that just stops you in your tracks, doesn't it?
It does.
When you actually sit down and do the math, we aren't talking about some fringe movement or a small pocket of society. We're talking about roughly 2.1 billion people.
2.1 billion. That is staggering. That's not a minority group. That isn't a specific sector like tech or...
No, not at all. That is effectively the global standard for how human beings work today.
The majority is invisible.
It is. And that's really the mission of today's deep dive. We are tearing into a fascinating and, frankly, pretty eye-opening piece of research called The Invisible Majority. It's by Anita Hummel from the platform A Bus on a Dusty Road.
Okay.
And we're going to figure out what this informal economy actually is, why it's swallowing up more of the workforce, and why, and this is the scary part, it's a ticking time bomb for the stability of our societies.
So let's get our terms straight before we go any further, because when I hear informal economy, and I know the source sometimes calls it the gray economy, I have a very specific image in my head, almost cinematic.
Let me guess. It's chaotic. A little colorful.
Yeah, exactly. I picture a crowded, noisy market in Lagos, or maybe a guy selling pad thai from a cart in Bangkok, a rickshaw driver weaving through traffic in Mumbai. You know, cash changing hands, no receipts, no tax man.
It feels very distant.
Yeah, it feels like a travel documentary.
And you're not wrong. I mean, those are the classic examples, and they make up a huge chunk of it. But here's the twist, and this is what Anita Hummel is really screaming from the rooftops in this research. The informal economy isn't just something that happens over there in developing nations.
Right.
It is reaching into the gleaming high-rises of New York City. It's happening on the quiet suburban streets of London. It is pervasive.
That's the part that threw me.
Okay.
So if it's everywhere, how do we actually pin it down? Because looking at the definition, I started wondering if maybe I've been a part of it without even realizing it.
You very well might have been. The definition is, it's tricky because it's defined by what it isn't. The informal economy is basically all the economic activity that's not taxed and not monitored by the government. They just fall off the radar.
Okay.
But the source argues that the real defining characteristic isn't just about taxes or paperwork. It's about one specific word. Vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Wow, that's a heavy word to put on a job description.
It is.
Usually we define jobs by the task, you know. I'm a welder, I'm a coder, or a teacher. But here we're defining it by the risk level.
Exactly. I mean, think about the structure of a formal job. You have a contract, you have pay stubs, you exist in the system.
Right.
In the informal sector, entry is incredibly easy. You don't need a degree. You don't usually need a license. The scale is small, often just you or maybe your family unit working together.
But the trade-off for that low barrier to entry is that you're basically walking a tightrope without a harness.
Precisely. A tightrope with no net. There are no guaranteed hours. There's no severance pay. And there is definitely no HR department to call when things go sideways.
Right. There's no Karen in HR to file a complaint with if your boss decides to, I don't know, scream at you or withhold your pay.
There isn't even a boss in the legal sense half the time. And this brings us to that global local paradox the source talks about. We need to dismantle this idea that this is just a third world problem.
Well, the numbers in the developing world are massive, right? I think the source says up to 90% in some places.
Exactly.
That's practically everyone.
Oh, absolutely. In many low-income countries, the informal economy is the economy. It's just how society functions. It's how people eat. But we have this myth in the West, in the so-called first world, that we've evolved past that. We tell ourselves that everything here is formalized, regulated, safe.
Well, we haven't.
Not even close. In fact, it's thriving right under our noses. But we've just rebranded it. We gave it the shiny new name that sounds modern and tech-savvy.
Which is?
The gig economy.
Of course. The freelancers, the graphic designers, the copywriters, the Uber drivers.
Right.
We call them entrepreneurs, founders of their own destiny.
But technically, they are often operating in the exact same structural void as that street vendor in Bangkok. They're independent contractors. They might use a fancy app. They might get paid via direct deposit, but legally, they often lack health insurance. They have no pension plans. They have zero job security. If the app deactivates them tomorrow, they have no recourse.
So they are, by definition, part of this informal dynamic.
Yes.
That is a really sobering connection.
Hmm.
It's so easy to feel superior to the gray economy when you're sitting in a Starbucks with a MacBook, but you don't have a contract or benefits. You're in the same boat.
You're just in a boat with better Wi-Fi. And it's not just the digital nomads either. This goes deeper into the physical fabric of our city.
Right, like undocumented labor.
Exactly. The people picking the vegetables that are sitting in your fridge right now, the construction crews pouring concrete for those new condos, often paid in cash at the end of the day, often living in fear of deportation.
And even closer to home?
Yeah.
Domestic work.
Yes. The invisible workforce inside the house. Nannies, house cleaners, caregivers for the elderly.
Working under the table.
New contracts, no paper trail, just cash in an envelope on the kitchen counter.
That's incredible when you frame it that way. I mean, the person delivering your dinner tonight, the person cleaning your office after you leave, the person taking care of your aging parent.
They might all be part of this invisible majority, and that invisibility is the core problem. Because being invisible means you fall into what the source calls a legal black hole.
Okay, I want to drill down into this black hole idea, because this seems to be the root of the rot. Why is the legal system blind to 60% of workers? Is it just bureaucratic incompetence?
It's deeper than that. It comes down to the architecture of labor law itself. Almost all formal labor rights, the 8-hour workday, overtime pay, safety regulations, they're all built on one specific legal concept.
And that is?
The employer-employee relationship.
Okay, so legally you need two distinct entities, a boss and a worker.
Correct. The law knows how to regulate that relationship. It says the boss must provide X, Y, and Z to the worker. But in the informal economy, that relationship, it technically doesn't exist. You're a day laborer, or you're self-employed, or your partner.
Partner, I love that one. It sounds so egalitarian, but it's actually a legal trapdoor, isn't it?
It is exactly that, a trapdoor. Because if you aren't an employee, you lose the right to organize. Think about it. You can't join a union or bargain collectively if there's no formal entity to bargain against.
That makes sense. You can't go on strike against an algorithm. You can't picket a verbal agreement you made with a guy in a truck who picked you up at 6 a.m.
Exactly. You are stripped of your collective power. You're an island. And then there's the issue of wage theft. This is just rampant and devastating.
How so?
Well, in the formal world, if your employer refuses to pay you, you have the Department of Labor. You have recourse. You can sue. There are systems.
But in the informal world, let's say I work a week on a construction site, and the site manager says, I'm not paying you for today. I didn't like your attitude. Or just, I don't have the cash.
You are just out of luck. There's no labor board to appeal to because on paper, the work never happened. You're on your own.
And it's your word against theirs.
And they have the money. And then consider safety. This is where it gets physically dangerous.
I can imagine. If no one's checking, why would anyone spend money on safety gear?
Precisely. Profit margins are thin. Informal workers often handle the most hazardous materials. Think about unregulated mining, dangerous construction sites, even handling harsh industrial chemicals and cleaning jobs.
And no oversight.
Zero safety oversight. No OSHA inspectors coming by with a clipboard. No protective gear is provided. It's wild.
It is. We have spent 100 years building these regulations to keep people from getting maimed at work. But the majority of the global workforce is just operating outside of them.
It raises a pretty uncomfortable question. Who are those regulations actually designed to protect? Are they for everyone or just for the lucky few inside the formal perimeter?
It really does. And that brings us to the second massive challenge, the source highlights, the social protection gap. This is the stuff that keeps you up at night. Or it should.
This is the what-if scenario, the catastrophe planning.
Right. So let's play this out for you to make it real. Picture this. You're walking down the street, maybe rushing to a job. You trip on a curb and snap. You break your leg.
Oof.
It's painful, sure. But for a formal worker with insurance, what is it, really? It's a medical issue. You go to the ER, show your card, get a cast, maybe you take a few sick days.
It's an inconvenience. It hurts, it's annoying, but life goes on. But for an informal worker, A broken leg isn't just a medical issue, it is a total economic catastrophe.
Because health insurance is usually tied to formal employment.
Yes. Or in other countries, it might be state mandated, but it requires payroll deductions that informal workers aren't making. It's a catch-22. So now you're paying out of pocket for care you can't afford, while also earning $0 because you physically cannot work.
And since you have no sick leave,
the income stops the second you hit the pavement. There is no grace period.
And I assume retirement is just a fantasy in this sector.
The source is incredibly blunt about this. There are no 401k matches. There are no company pensions accumulating in the background. The retirement plan for the invisible majority is basically work until your body physically breaks down.
That's bleak. And then what?
And then you rely on family charity. That's it. That is the safety net. You hope your kids can support you.
It's a brutal equation. The source uses the phrase, no work, no eat.
That's the reality. No paid sick leave. No maternity leave. If you take a day off to care for a sick child or because you have the flu, you do not get paid.
And for millions of people, if you don't get paid today, there's no food on the table tonight.
It is a hand-to-mouth existence in the most literal sense.
And on top of all the physical risks and the lack of insurance, there's this whole other layer of what they call financial exclusion. I found this part so frustrating because it feels rigged. The system is rigged to keep you down.
It is systemic. It's all about being unbanked.
Yeah. I mean, try walking into a major bank and asking for a mortgage, or even a small business loan to expand your street stall, or buy a better laptop for freelance work.
What do you show them?
You have no pay stub, no tax return.
The bank officer will show you the door before you even sit down. You just don't exist in their risk assessment models. You are a ghost to the financial system.
So where do people go for money? If you need capital or just cash to survive an emergency?
They're forced into the shadows. They have to rely on predatory money lenders, loan sharks, people who charge exorbitant criminal interest rates because they know the borrower has absolutely nowhere else to go.
Which just traps people in a cycle of debt.
It's a quicksand pit. And there was a quote in the source material from Anita Hummel that really just stopped me. I want to read it because it sums this up so perfectly.
Please.
It says, "The informal economy is a safety net for the poor, but it is a net made of razor wire. It catches you, but it also cuts you."
Wow. A net made of razor wire. That is a powerful image.
And it's just so accurate. It catches you. It gives you a way to survive when the formal economy rejects you, but the cost. It cuts you with instability, with a lack of rights, with physical danger.
To bring this into the modern context, the source uses the example of a delivery rider in a European city. I think this is important because it bridges that gap we talk about between the third world image and our own reality.
Right. This is someone we see every single day, zipping through traffic with that thermal backpack.
And technically, they're self-employed. They're their own boss. They're entrepreneurs. But look at the reality.
They're a cog in a digital machine.
A cog. They have zero control over their rates. The app decides that. Zero control over their hours if they want to make a living wage. Zero control over safety.
And the algorithm is a relentless boss. If you aren't fast enough, you get penalized. Decline too many trips, you get penalized. You carry all the risk, your bike, your health, your insurance, and the platform takes a cut.
It's the ultimate capitalization of the informal model. And if we look back just a few years to the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw exactly how this plays out in a crisis.
The ultimate stress test. It was such a stark contrast.
It really was.
Do you remember when the world shut down, formal workers in many countries got furloughed? They got government stipends, paycheck protection.
The system paused to help them.
But the informal workers, the ones who were actually out there delivering the food to people in lockdown, the ones cleaning the hospitals.
They got nothing.
Often nothing, because on the government registers, they didn't exist. You can't send a stimulus check to a ghost. They fell right through the cracks of the very system they were helping to sustain.
It's heartbreaking. Anita Hummel provides a really helpful chart in the article, actually, that breaks these differences down. I think it's worth just quickly running through the big ones.
Yeah, let's do it. It's good to see it in black and white.
Okay, first, contracts in the formal economy.
Legally binding. Written. Enforceable in court.
And informal.
Verbal, or just non-existent. Show up tomorrow and I'll see if I have work for you.
Okay. Taxation.
Formal is deducted automatically from your paycheck. Informal is untaxed on income, though remember, they still pay sales tax, VAT, when they buy things, so they are contributing.
That's a good point. And finally, job security.
Formal has notice periods, severance packages, due process. Informal has zero security. at will, day to day.
Yeah.
You can be fired because it's raining.
It really paints a clear picture of two different worlds operating in the same space.
Of a parallel dimension. And we have to realize that this isn't sustainable.
So what does this all mean for us, for you listening? Why should you care if your delivery driver have a pension?
Well, beyond basic human empathy, it means that the stability we think our societies are built on is actually resting on a very fragile foundation. We rely on this labor. We rely on the cheap services, the food delivery, the construction, the childcare. But we are denying the people providing those services the basic protections that allow a society to function long term.
It's like building a house on a foundation that you refuse to maintain. Eventually, the cracks appear.
Exactly. And for the workers, it's a trap. It offers survival, but rarely a path to growth. Without access to credit, without safety nets, it's very hard to move from the informal to the formal. You just stay stuck.
It really makes you think about how we measure success. We spend so much time looking at the stock market or GDP or unemployment numbers to judge the health of our economy.
We obsess over those numbers. We watch the ticker tape like it's a scoreboard.
But here's a provocative thought for you to chew on. If 60% of the workforce is invisible to those metrics, if the stock market goes up but the majority of workers are falling into this razor wire safety net, are we just looking at a complete illusion?
That is a question.
Are we measuring the health of an economy that doesn't actually represent the reality for most human beings?
I think until we figure out how to integrate this invisible majority into the system, giving them rights, giving them protection, we're only seeing half the picture. We're applauding a play where we can only see half the stage.
Absolutely. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I know I'm going to look at my next food delivery or the construction site down the street a little differently.
Me too. It's about seeing the people behind the service.
If you found this as fascinating as we did and you want to support the work that brings these stories to light, we have a few specific things you can do.
Yes, please. You should definitely check out the source of today's deep dive.
Please subscribe to our podcast. You can find us under the names Dusty Roads or The Deep Dive by Dusty Roads on all the major platforms. Just hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode.
And if you're more of a visual learner or you want to see what these markets actually look like, I highly invite you to check out the A Bus on a Dusty Road YouTube channel. They have great videos and a lot more info on these global topics.
And finally, become a global citizen. Go visit the blog and sign up for the newsletter. It's the best way to join the community and stay updated on these issues that affect all of us.
Knowledge is power, but only if you use it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.